All right, let's resume our meetings. Um, it seems like Professor Park Sang-Young said he's pseudo sociologist, but um, I think I'm a pseudo economist, and it seems like uh, the prior presentation and meetings remind me of my early political economy class, which begins with the market failure, and I think Professor Lee Seung-yeon's keynote speech talks about the failure of the company or the firm failures, and then Professor Kim Sun-tae's presentation talks about the failure of the regional growth and the social failure, and also Professor Sean Hyatt's discussion about the failure in energy transition. In particular, he tried to clarify the idea of the rather than the transition, addition of the new types of energy. So very interesting. And from that perspective, we're adding another issues of the failure, which is the opportunity of the entrepreneurship. So we'll talk about who's the entrepreneur and how we just understand and the interact with the entrepreneur because of the social identification of the entrepreneur and also the biological the sex of the entrepreneur. So and we see to some extent the failure of that issue. So the title of this session is the issues on gender and entrepreneurship, and our presenter will be Professor Yisook at the Hanyang University. She got a PhD in Cornell International Labor Relations Schools in organizational behavior, and she's interested in entrepreneurship and social network studies, and published many articles in the leading international journals. And also we have leading scholar as a discussant, Professor Sang-Joon from Ewha University. He got a PhD in the UC Irvine in the strategy. Is that strategy? Yes, OT. And then he has many publications in the AMJ, SMJ, in Journal of Business Economics, and majoring in the major interest is around the evolutionary dynamics of technology firms, including innovation and ambidextrity, and also the organizational ecological perspective. Okay, so without further delay, let's give a big applause to our leading speaker, to the Yisook.
Thank you very much for having me here, K-ESG Conference at KAIST. My name is Yisook Lim. I'm an assistant professor at Business Administration at Hanyang University, Erika. I'm very pleased to get an opportunity to talk about gender and entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship here today, because I think it is really important topic, but has been relatively underestimated and ignored in Korean academia. So As we know, women are half of the working population, but are underrepresented in many economic fields, including entrepreneurship. And according to the OECD report, the missing entrepreneur, women are half as likely as men to be involved in starting new businesses across the world. So today, I'd like to review this women entrepreneurship based on 4 foundational questions. And later, I will present women entrepreneurship issue and the current situation in Korean context. So traditionally, entrepreneurship literature has focused on males and not distinguished the gender differences. Women entrepreneurship did not develop as a significant area until the late 1990s and 2000, early 2000. And since the mid-2000, the academia need to investigate the various dimensions of women entrepreneurship and gender and entrepreneurship and suggest that women may have played a significant role in the larger entrepreneurial phenomenon and economic development. And also there were changes after the launch of 2 important conferences. The first one is a policy-oriented OECD conference about women entrepreneurs in small and medium-sized enterprises in 1998. And also in academia, academic conference Diana International was held in 2003. And this graph at the left side shows a dramatically increase in number of publications on women entrepreneurship or gender and entrepreneurship. And as you can see in the graph, since the mid-20s, 2000, the study of women entrepreneurship has experienced great growth. And the Journal of Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice, which is the top journal in the field of entrepreneurship, published a special issue on women entrepreneurship in 2006, 7, and 12. And also a specific journal focused on gender and entrepreneurship, International Journal of Gender and Entrepreneurship, was launched in 2009. Also GEM, Global Entrepreneur Monitor, published a special report on women and entrepreneurship in 2006, 10, 12, and 15. So I categorized the literature based on 4 foundational questions. And the first question is the propensity to start a new business. So between the differences between the men and women. So the literature found consistently that female involvement in entrepreneurial activity is significantly lower than that of men worldwide. And we can find it both self-employment and high-tech industries. And this phenomenon was explained by, first, individual psychological tradition. So this line of research focused on individual preferences and opportunity recognition and females' risk-aversive behavior. And sociological and feminism theories focus more on women's decision and women's the culture and social backgrounds. For example, social roles and stereotypes that make women less involved in the entrepreneurship domain. So the people say entrepreneurship domain, entrepreneur characteristics such as innovativeness or risk-taking is more masculine. And also, these line of research focus on insufficient entrepreneur education and STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also managerial education. And also, prior work experience is really important to start a business. And the research found that women has less level of prior work experience. And the second question is access to resources, specifically financial resources. So in this line of research, found that women are more likely to launch firms with lower level of initial funding. And also, importantly, female entrepreneurs are less likely to be funded by external sources, such as business angel or venture capital. And the research and scholars found some of diverse reasons. The first one is the industry differences between men and women. So women are overrepresented as small and the retail and personal services, and underrepresented in manufacturing, extraction, and business services, which grow more rapidly. And also the women-led firms are more likely to provide services to local community rather than global outreach or international exporting. And also some of research found that female entrepreneurs are more likely to be risk aversive and also debt aversive. And the social network scholars found that women entrepreneurs are less diverse network in size and diversity. So these kind of network characteristics limit their access to financial resources. And also another research found that there is gender-based discrimination. For example, there is a high denial rate from bank lenders. And also third foundational question is distinctiveness, women-owned or women-led enterprises, or a distinctive characteristic of women entrepreneurs. So women entrepreneurs have different management styles. For example, women demonstrate their strength in interactive and relational management styles, such as empowering, team creating, and preserving to grow their employees. And also another research found that the women are more motivated by personal fulfillment and flexibility in work-life balances, and autonomy and family focus. So keeping their firms small and controllable, and preferring flexible schedule to balance work and family or work and life. And for work hours and better opportunity to manage work hours to attend to other activities such as raising a family, raising children. And also, interestingly, some of research found that pursuing non-economic and social values are more important for female entrepreneurs. So some of research found that, the women entrepreneurs are more likely to fund social ventures compared to their male counterpart. And women business owners place a substantial importance on the family. So women family are intertwined very closely according to the research, this kind of research. So the family of children as important motivators, and also female-led ventures are more home-based. And also, women entrepreneurs tend to start business with romantic partners. I also found, the women are more likely to found business with their family members, including their romantic partners. And also, the final foundation question is around performance. So this line of research found that gender plays a significant role in business in terms of growth and profitability. Female-led businesses tend to grow less rapidly and to be less profitable than male-led one. However, critics argue that measuring performance purely based on economic growth is insufficient to explain or understand the female entrepreneurship, because I explained before, women are more focused on the social values and non-economic values as well. And in terms of business survival, actually, research evidence is mixed and inconsistent. So some of the research found that women-led firms tend to have a higher closure rate. However, this kind of phenomenon is caused by the inability to control for important key factors, such as industry, owners' education, experience, and owners' prior work experience, prior entrepreneurial experience, and firm ages. Okay, then I'd like to present the current situation of women-led firms in Korea. I brought a few statistics. As you can see here, in 2019, the women-led firms are firms women own or manage or both. So women-led firms is worth about 40% of total number of firms, and also the employment is growing. However, the problem is that the revenue produced by women-owned, women-led firms is about less than 10%. So mean is 200 million won, according to Ministry of SMEs and Startups. This is because of one of the important reason is that women are overrepresented in small scale service businesses such as wholesale and retail businesses and real estate businesses and lodging or restaurant businesses. You can see that the red bar shows that this kind of industry. And this is this is a whole, the women-led firms. And this data is about women-led startups, new businesses in Korea in 2020 data. So as you can see here, in 2020, the female startups account for about 46.7% of the total number, which is good sign. So the female entrepreneurship grow a lot, at least quantitatively. And so according to GEM data, Global Women's Report, it was found only 5 of the 74 economies have equal startup rates between male and female, and Korea is about half, so it grow a lot. And but in terms of industry, it shows a similar tendency. Wholesale and retail, lodging and restaurant industries, businesses are the majorities. But importantly and interestingly, and is a good thing that there is increasing number of high tech and or knowledge based businesses also growing. They're increasing. However, women-led startups which acquire venture capital finance is, less than 10% of total number, which is problematic. But it is, we have to know that the women-led firm, women-led startups which got the VC capital, venture capital, create much higher revenue, so 10, times more than those not funded by VC. So this is the graph shows sources of startup financing. So the men is a comparison between men and women. As you can see here, the angel and VC, even though men also get, the percentage of got to angel or venture capital is very low, but look at women is only 0.1%, which is really low percentage of angel. The company which got angel or external funds. And this is VC deal activity for women-founded companies. So women is less than 10% of the total deal count and deal amount as well. And this is OECD, the nation-state comparison. So in Korea, you can see this graph shows the borrowing money, the differences of borrowing money to start a business between men and women. So the Korea is a significant gender differences. And the government support also shows similar tendencies. The percentage is much the higher than VC or angel, but still, compared to men, women are less likely to get government support. So we intend to start companies with less funding than men and rely more on personal investment or the family and friends rather than external capital, business angel or VC or bank loan, government-related funding. However, as we know, external capital is really important, is essential for firm growth, and it can be a status signal. And we see the count is significantly low compared to the US and European countries. And so the people says this kind of phenomenon can be explained by low proportion of female venture capitalists in VC. So female venture capitalists, the number of female venture capitalists is about 10% of total venture capitalists. So, but the research and the government officials and also the entrepreneurial scholar says male venture capitalists may have limitation in evaluating the potential of female-owned startups. So that's a problematic. And also, as a non-material factor, prior work experience is most cited as the most influential factor to start a new business, especially important for female. Women have relatively little work experience, and importantly, there is they have discontinuous career compared to men because of childbirth or childbearing. So these kind of family issues can be act as a constraint and limitation on potential female entrepreneurship skills and knowledge accumulation. But also it's the biggest factor leading to the formation of a limited network. So it is, it affects human capital and also social capital for female entrepreneur. Then why we have to promote women entrepreneurship? According to Boston Consulting Group's survey, this is US startup survey, but when analyzing startups that have received external fund, the revenue of women-led ones is higher than their male counterpart. An organization with more women in senior management positions outperform male-dominated companies, according to the research. And also gender inequality in economic activity is detrimental to the national economy. And according to the McKinsey project, Korea, this is Korea data, so GDP would increase to about $160 billion by 2025 if women had an equal representation in all labor markets. So I'd like to say we have to lay the foundation. So I want to say that we have to create social and cultural environment to promote women entrepreneurship. So there is still a lack of social consensus on the support and promotion for women entrepreneurship in Korea. And women are underrepresented in all kinds of leadership of all sectors. And gender bias is still deeply entrenched in society. So the creation of a gender equal social and cultural environment should be accompanied to promote women entrepreneurship. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss about the gendered entrepreneurship. So there are a lot of kind of information on the women entrepreneurship from the Professor Im, and I tried to actually reshuffle the information and try to reorganize the some kinds of concepts and theories in terms of what is the main kind of the ontology of women entrepreneurship. So let's get started. Okay, so women entrepreneurship is a very complex term because it has the combination of two words, the women and entrepreneurship. So if you have more focus on the women, so it will you try to actually think about some kind of endowment, the thesis, like the resource-based view. You need to think about what women actually have and what you have is possessed, differentiated from men. So maybe there's some kind of differentiation of the possession in terms of the resource from the women. It will actually make some differences in terms of the entrepreneurship. So we may have some conjecture like the women's inborn traits and characteristics, capacity, or other individual attributes will lead to discern the type of style of entrepreneurship. So we will find some kinds of differences in terms of the individual differences. So we can try to answer the question like how different are women from men in creating and managing a firm. And the Professor Im tried to actually summarize how we can understand some phenomena related to the women entrepreneurship comparing to the men entrepreneurship. But as a result of some kinds of based on the findings, we find that the why the main differences we can find, but we cannot actually declare some kind of causality between the gender-specific characteristics and the entrepreneurship, or some kinds of likelihood of entrepreneurship. So maybe there are some different factors will be engaged in this kind of process and between the women and entrepreneurship. And it seems that the successful women entrepreneurs tend to act like male entrepreneurs. So maybe there are the male-dominated cultures in the entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial the ecosystems, and women try to actually acculturate to hold the practice and the cultures from made from the other male-dominated society, and they will actually have more probability to success. So this is the one kind of the thoughts related to the if you just focus on the women rather than the entrepreneurship. So if you just focus on the entrepreneurship rather than the women, so you try to find out some kinds of the logic of the entrenchment. So you can figure out, okay, women have different kinds of processes and pathways to make us their firms. So you may have some questions like what do women entrepreneurs do to forward their businesses? And this is about the processes of the entrepreneurship. So you may have the conjecture like the ways to form a new firm are differentiated between the women and men. And then you have a question like how unique are the values of the firms as established by the women entrepreneurs. So you may focus on like the firms themselves rather than the women or the entrepreneurs or people. So, but as you found, there might be no differentiated types and styles of entrepreneurship between men and women. So all the types of the types of the firms are the same or the identical between men and women because we have some kind of standard, right? The standard in the ecosystem. So just women just follow some kind of social norms made by the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And then both genders go through the common processes of entrepreneurship, as I said, which is actually made by the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So you can actually think about some kinds of whole processes of the women entrepreneurship without considering the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because it is the very kind of strong pressures to the actual nascent entrepreneurs. So really complex terms, right? And then we have more things to be explored. Maybe the Professor Im didn't actually cover the topics related to the women entrepreneurship, because we still find some kind of differences in the phenomenologically, right? And anecdotally, so we find some kind of differences between men and women in terms of the entrepreneurship. But the statistics kind of analysis and the results show that there's no kind of the critical differences between them. That means we need to explore some the other kind of factors to figure out what are the differences between the men and women of the entrepreneurship processes. So I suggest that we need to look at the women themselves and how the women look at the phenomenon of entrepreneurship and how the women make sense of the terms and concept of entrepreneurship. That will be some kind of different kind of view to further understand the women entrepreneurship, I think. So we can have further questions like what do women expect from entrepreneurship? So what are their concept of the entrepreneurship? And how seriously do they consider becoming an entrepreneur as their career? So maybe career is the one kind of the topic, the keyword to further understand the women entrepreneurship. And then how can researchers define who are women entrepreneurs and what is the ideal portrait of women entrepreneurship? That is our role from the researchers and the academic areas. Why? So actually, I follow the Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx, which is a very famous kind of firm in the United States. And then she is really charismatic, and she has the very charismatic leadership style. But she has some kind of concern in her 20s. So in between their like the life courses, and then as a woman, and career as an entrepreneur. And then she checked the building my empire. That means she abandoned some kinds of pathways to the typical the women life, and then they just take some kind of different kinds of the other pathways for her career. But she said actually in the last time that she said she achieved all of these kind of pathways. So maybe she did everything. And then I found two kind of the interesting phenomena, social phenomena. The first one is the women aren't becoming engineers. So this is very typical, some kind of phenomena in the STEM area. Because women have the same kind of capacity and capability in terms of like the mechanics or the engineering, mathematics, something like that. But the women actually are likely to abandon and give up their career as an engineer. So there are some kinds of the reasons and the rationales why the women aren't becoming engineers. But many studies actually argue that there are some kinds of the lack of confidence, and there are some kind of the pressures to escape from the male-dominated some kind of area. As you know, the STEM is actually male-dominated society and the area. So women cannot actually persist as their career in the kind of male-dominated society. Second one is a discrimination. So as you know, there are two factors to make some people to become the entrepreneurs, the push factors and the pull factors. The push means there are some kind of discrimination or complaint from the traditional organizations and lead people to actually think about the entrepreneurship. So maybe women have experienced some kinds of discrimination in their organization, and then the women who have some kind of experience on some kinds of gender discrimination, we can expect that they will escape from the traditional organizations to become the sole proprietary or make some kind of self-employed person. But that is my research. So I just they collect the data on the women lawyers and who is a professional, women professionals, and they have some pathways and career pathways to stay at the traditional law firms, or they just open the legal offices. So maybe you can imagine the opening their own legal offices can be one type of the entrepreneurship. So we can also say this is the professional entrepreneurship. So I tried to actually analyze the relationship between the pull and push factors and the likelihood of the entrepreneurship in the legal areas. And I found that the discrimination can actually be different from becoming the entrepreneurs. So that means the women try to actually endure and stand for the discrimination, and they don't actually they choose to be an entrepreneur, even though they experience the discrimination. So discrimination, the survivor is a more kind of the severe part than the discrimination. So this is very interesting, kind of the phenomenon, I think. So this is the last slide, and I tried to actually to conclude my thoughts related to the women entrepreneurship. So I tried to focus on the social structure as a signifier, and it will give us some kinds of signal to the some kinds of phenomena related to the women entrepreneurship. Because the women entrepreneurship has a paradox. Because entrepreneurship might be considered as an important opportunity for women to overcome social barriers. So they try to actually escape from the traditional organization and escape from the male-dominated society, and they can have their own kinds of market organization, some kinds of areas. So it will be a very good kind of opportunity. But for this, they should make it through with excessive effort. As we know, the liability of newness and then startups cannot actually survive well. And they have to actually overcome the double kinds of the burdens. They have to actually overcome the gender biases and the other some gender discrimination, as well as some kinds of survival of the other new startups. So this is some kinds of the paradox. So that means, so should we support women for entrepreneurship, and should we promote women to become an entrepreneur? maybe we cannot actually have some kinds of the reservation, because given the social structure has been enacted by males, the practice of supporting entrepreneurial firms have been made by the males. So the practices like the incubating, accelerating, the VC firms, like those kind of terms actually made by the Silicon Valley, and the Silicon Valley actually dominated by the male and engineers. And that means the entrepreneurial ecosystem is actually made by male, especially white engineers, right? And that means should the women follow or observe all the cultures from the male-dominated some kinds of the cultures and practices, or they can actually have some more kind of chances to make their own some kinds of environments for the entrepreneurship. But in our society and in the global, like some kinds of the standards actually are made by the Silicon Valleys, right? And we can actually overcome these kind of the very like the iron cage like the structure in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So maybe you just kind of encourage women to become entrepreneurs. It will actually amplify the gender gap. So I think that is another kind of the problem we think about how we can whether we actually support women for the entrepreneurship or not. So we have some kinds of the thoughts. So the women entrepreneurship is gendered or gendering or other kind of different kinds of perspectives. So in my mind, the women entrepreneurship is an artifact of the interaction between the women and the male-dominated social structure. And the women try to actually struggle for the male-dominated practices, culture, and other kinds of the cognitive institutions. So to nest into women entrepreneurs, the priming is dangerous. So we may not actually argue and encourage people to become the entrepreneurs, because it will let them to fall into the double loop and the uncertainty. So like the liability of newness and the gender, the social structure, and gender gaps. So maybe we can find some solution. So this is my kind of the opinion. So co-optation can be the one kind of solution rather than the solidarity or some kinds of the reinforcing the gender identity. Maybe so we can just kind of make some kinds of female VCs in the Silicon Valley, and then the female VCs can be like make their own kind of culture and investing the funds to the startups in Silicon Valley, and it will actually make some kind of cracks in the male-dominated entrepreneurial ecosystem, and which will lead to some kinds of different kinds of the culture for the supporting for the other women entrepreneurship. Okay, that's my discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Baik. And yeah, you gave me a lot of insights to pursue, women entrepreneurship research. Yeah, I agree with you that there is a double loop uncertainty, and the successful female entrepreneurs acculturation. Because I met some successful female entrepreneur, and they said, I don't want to be labeled as a females. And they just, they are more likely to acculture the male-dominated and the business culture and management and entrepreneurship. So, and yeah, I agree with you. And I think so. One of the important thing we have to overcome and to promote women entrepreneurship. And also, I personally, I want to do research about the individual preference is affected by is a socially constrained behavior. So nowadays, micro OB and macro or sociological or feminism theory, is disconnected. But I think, individual preference is not purely individual preference. It is, by the females have different socialization process from childhood and in education system and so on, in family. So, and also I'm now I'm teaching diversity and inclusion and so on, and you know, the gender equality at school, but the females are, you know, because of a stereotype threat, female are more likely to avoid STEM, you know, science and engineering and math, and even though, you know, they have, you know, there is a not significant difference between men and women. So I, you know, I think I want to, you know, do some research about finding the individual preference and the socialization process, and then their decision making to start up new businesses. And yeah, and yep, and thank you again, and yeah, with you.
Thank you for bring up the issues about the gender and entrepreneurship issue, and then also the providing the lots of, you know, phenomena and stats in Korean context, and also the discussant Professor Kim, you know, trying to reorganize how to academics and the researchers can consider toward the research work and getting the you know, regularities and ideas about the, you know, policy ideas potentially related to the topic. So we have about like 8 minutes. No, actually 18 minutes, 15 minutes. So let's open up the you know, the questions in the you know, floor.
So I really think this is a very complicated topic. One comment, I have a couple comments. Okay. So one comment has to do with this notion that satisfaction isn't really described in a lot of this gender-related entrepreneurship research. So, you know, we're talking a lot about revenue, we're talking a lot about propensity to become an entrepreneur, but really, I think that we should also be considering not only the satisfaction of female or women entrepreneurs, but also the satisfaction of the women and females in the entire population of these regions. So on the one hand, I feel like we need to make sure that we don't impose male enacted policy on women, you know, in a way that leaves them dissatisfied. I think that's the first comment that I wanted to make. And then the other comment that I wanted to make was that women in any population, in any regional population, also have different tastes of their own, heterogeneous tastes among themselves. You know, you have some women who do want to have a family and yet also become an entrepreneur. And then you have other women in a population that probably have no interest in becoming an entrepreneur. They want to focus on family. So I feel like what's also important is that we make sure that we don't try to create a one-size-fits-all kind of policy for women, and that not only do we have multiple kinds of policies, but that also we would foster respect for, we would foster an environment that where women can respect each other for choosing different life plans.
Okay.
Okay. I agree with you that, women have different tastes, from men. But I think, as I mentioned before, and I think there is individual differences can be at least partially explained by social structure and social, socialization process. Yeah. So domain avoidance or in and also family thing also women's are as I explained, the family and the children can be an important motivator for female entrepreneurs, but at the same time it can be a constraint to they pursue their entrepreneurial activity or their firm growth or many related things. So yeah, I'd like to see the entire population in and later, but still, I think individual differences and individual preferences can be partially explained by social factors. So I want to see that kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. Let's invite the question from the floor. Not much. And actually, I have the question, my own question about your slides. It's very interesting to introduce the Korean, the women entrepreneur statistics, and then I found that you introduced the number of the money received, between the male and the female, entrepreneur firms, and then I see very little difference. So could we interpret it as in terms of financing in the venture? There could be.
You mean the table about sources of?
So,
yeah.
I don't know the statistical significance exists, but relatively speaking, eyeballing levels, not big difference. So in terms of amount of money, funding for the women-led venture firms in Korea, in the Korean context, I see relatively less difference or discrimination. And is it true? Or
Yeah,
is it fair if I?
Actually, in a statistics, male-led firm also get very low funding, external funding like female, but if we focus on the VC or angel, the 1.2% of male-led firm get funding, but female is only 1.0. Yet, the male-led firms also, use their private investment, personal investment, and family-backed loans or family funding, and the informal funding. They use also a lot of. However, if we focus on the formal sources and external and government loans, and then women are much less likely to get those kind of funding. So I think is a one important factor to produce gender inequality in entrepreneurship in Korea still. Yeah.
Okay. And also the question is, in terms of the types of business or industries, the women-led venture firms are pretty much skewed into the wholesale service, the business, and other related, very specific, small number of the businesses. Is there any kind of notion that the women-led ventures can be better in addressing this kind of sustainability issues? If you get that
Could
kind
you
of
explain more?
So I want to know that women's kind of characteristics or the experience or their social roles in tradition can help them better identify business opportunity in addressing this sustainable issues in terms of environment and then social problems. Let's say, for example, Professor Kim Sun-tae's presentation before, he mentioned kind of the animals abandoned and then taking care of that animals and the entrepreneurs who take care of that issue is the woman. So I see lots of Michigan entrepreneur case is on the basis led by the women entrepreneurs. So that kind of the identifying the social failures or problems and challenges, and then the female entrepreneurs were better identifying and addressing that kind of issue. And I want to know that if that could be the possibilities.
Yeah, the most recent research found that women are more likely to found social ventures when they choose their industry or their type of firms, and as I explained, that women are more motivated by they pursue economic goals, but at the same time the non-economic value or social values are more important in many cases of female entrepreneurs. So the most recent research I found that the authors found that women are more inclined to social values and they're more likely to found the social ventures compared to their male counterparts. So I think the women's their identity as a entrepreneurs, that they more pursue the sustainability or ESG or kind of that. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. And also the question in the Korean context will be the regional equality, or so the women-led ventures will be most popular in Seoul and the metropolitan area, or the urban area, or the rural, or the other regions. Do you see any?
I found no significant differences across the region in Korea. I think Korean is, compared to U.S., Korean is a small society. But I found that, Daejeon is, KAIST around. In most successful young female entrepreneurs, I found that, they commonly graduated from KAIST, So, and in that sense, I think the women's, from the socialization process from the childhood, we have to educate them more risk-taking and more innovative and more, there is no differences between, men and women in terms of math or engineering and so on. So, but I could not find significant regional differences, but, about education is really important factor. Yeah.
And also, is there any chance that the digitalization and the more high tech, like the STEM, area, technology will free the women and the gender, the biases? Is it a possibility? In that case, if we educate more the women in those areas, and then digitalization's advances, then probably this kind of gender concerns, discrimination might be diluted or disappear. Do you think? Be the possibility?
Yes. It is one of the important solution, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Let's wrap up the session in that way. All right. All right. Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your.